Hi, I'm Candace.
And I'm Belle.
And welcome to our Closing the Early Literacy Gap podcast.
Are you an early learning teacher like preschool or early elementary who wonders why you can't seem to help all the kids in your class?
Or are you a parent searching for answers to why your child is not reading yet?
Or maybe you're an administrator or a trainer of teachers who's still trying to find the answers for those you're trying to train.
Then you are in the right place.
We are current elementary teachers who have realized the heartbreaking truth that there are gaps in teaching early literacy and the profound effect that it is having on our children and our students, and as a result, our society. So we're hoping to bring awareness to this issue while discussing helpful resources and ideas that can help close this gap.
My name is Candace, like I already said. I am a mom of 5, ranging in ages from 2 to 14. I've worked in the education system for 11 years in both private school and public charter school. I am currently a first grade teacher. I've also taught kindergarten and preschool, so I've seen how teaching early literacy and phonemic awareness skills early on in the education system really makes an impact on kids' academic success. I really think and have witnessed myself starting letters, sounds, and what they look like early is the best way to go. And that kids are way smarter than we think they are.
They are. It's true. And as I said, I'm Belle, and I've been an educator since 1996. I'm a little bit older than Candace. But I'm currently, I've been in both private and public, and I'm currently a first grade teacher also. But I also do some reading therapy with a few older kids as well. I've taught 2nd, 3rd grade, and I spent a few years in administration. And I'm the mom of 4 amazing children ranging in ages from 24 to 14.
We do want to point out, we've both just a couple of years ago went through the letters program, finished it, and got our certificates from it. And I think taking those courses, even though we both were fully aware that there was an issue in early literacy, this really helped open our eyes that there is a big problem and that we need to do something.
We as teachers, there's so much we learn from that program that we don't know. And so we just feel like we need to do something.
Yeah, I have such a passion for teaching kids to read, and it started with my own struggles growing up. I grew up in the 80s, and I was taught by my parents. I did the Hooked on Phonics with the cassette tapes and the booklets, and I distinctly remember what they look like and the sound of her voice doing it. And I mean, it did an okay job. It really did. But it didn't teach me any phonemic awareness skills or any skills needed to decode words I hadn't seen before. It didn't really explain, at least as far as I can remember, decoding word patterns and being able to use those skills to read higher words. So when I was reading in class out loud and I would get to a word that I wouldn't know, it was very embarrassing for me. And so when we were reading, popcorn style or whatever, I would be that kid that would consistently be reading ahead and rereading the same sentence over and over just so I knew how to read it to spare embarrassment. And I hated it. And I don't want kids to feel like that. I don't want them to experience that at all.
Yeah. And the truth is there's a lot of kids who, even if they look ahead, they can't figure
it out. And it's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's so much anxiety.
Right. Yeah. So for me, I had a different experience because reading came really easy to me. I just always took it for granted that, you learn how to read, you read. And I never even remember learning how to read. I just learned how to read automatically. But my husband's a different story because my husband's dyslexic and he has a lot of really bad memories from his years in school just trying to learn how to read. And it's a struggle for him. And as a result, I have kids who also struggle with dyslexia. So I'm just going to tell a little story about my daughter and how I learned that early learning was super important. My oldest daughter taught herself how to read. She was much like me, and so I didn't think much of it. She learned her ABCs really early. She just figured out how to read, and I didn't think much of it. But by the time my second daughter came, she was just 18 months younger than my first daughter. And so I actually went back. I was home with my girls for the first few years. And then I went back to school, back to teaching the same year my oldest went into kindergarten.
Okay.
So my 3-year-old daughter, I was concerned because she was 3 already and she still didn't know her ABCs. And I thought, my older daughter learned her ABCs before this age.
Right.
So I was concerned, and my husband was going to be staying home with the kids when I went back to work. And so I asked him if he would work with her on her ABCs. And after a little while, I don't remember how much time, he told me, I give up. She can't learn them.
Oh my gosh.
It's so funny, but but he just didn't know how to help her. And I mean, we can all feel for that because we've all had kids. We've all had students that were like, we're teaching you this. Why aren't you learning it? And we we tend to want to blame the child, right?
Right. They're not paying attention.
Right. Or say it's
listening.
impossible, which is kind of what he didn't have any training, but I didn't know. I mean, a lot of us didn't know how to teach her either. In fact, I didn't know what to do. And so I started doing some research. And in fact, actually, I started working with her more, and it was harder for her. But the next year, I had the opportunity through the school to go to a conference about reading, and I happened to go to a class by Sally Shaywitz, and I have her book right here. It's called Overcoming Dyslexia. I bought this at this conference, and you can see how worn out it is. But she completely described my daughter and my husband when she talked about dyslexia. And so I bought her book, and that's when I started my research, going down the whole research. And my husband had gone back to work that year, so I'd ask another babysitter to teach her. And I had gotten her this program, Teach Your Child to Read and How to Read Easy Lessons, which is a pretty good program. And the lessons are supposed to be 15 to 20 minutes long, but they have all these different little tasks. Oh, for our listeners, Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons is what the book is called, by Siegfried Engelmann.
And I think my daughter's doing this right now.
Yeah,
my
it's a really good program to teach them the sounds and go through this and in a parent-child type of way.
Right.
So it's a great resource. But it says that the lessons should take 15 to 20 minutes, and each lesson has several tasks.
Right.
In fact, let's see. Lesson 3 has 8 tasks.
Yeah.
So just as an idea, let me show that for our listeners, it has 8 tasks and different things. One task would be a sound, another task might be blending sounds together, another task might be some phonemic awareness kind of thing. So anyway, just different tasks. Well, my babysitter after a while said to me, can I change the reading program because she doesn't like that one? And I knew that this was a good program, and so I was like, no, I don't really want her to change the program. She goes, well, it takes a lot longer than 15, 20 minutes. It takes 15 to 20 minutes each task.
Oh my God.
And I was like, I thought that can't be. She maybe isn't teaching it right or whatever. So I said, I'll take over. So I started teaching these to her, and she was totally right. I mean, my daughter would literally sit and just cry. She just and she was just this sweet little girl. She was very well behaved, but tears would just pour down her cheeks as she sat there so calm, because it was so hard for her. And I would have her, she would do the sound, but then when we tried to put them together, she couldn't put them together. Or if we did, eat, then she couldn't put it together.
Right.
She would say the sounds and then she couldn't put it together. And I just was baffled. I didn't know what to do. And so that was around the same time that I discovered the Overcoming Dyslexia with Sally Shaywitz. And I just started researching and finding, and I got some great ideas from her, and I started implementing some of those ideas, and we worked really, really hard. And I had a friend who said to me, I don't know why you're working so hard with her to learn her sounds. She doesn't need to know them before kindergarten.
Which I think is such a disservice.
It totally is a disservice.
To teachers and to students.
Right.
Because as a teacher, you have kids who come in, and you have kids who know the required amount of sounds, which I think before kindergarten right now, I need to do research on that actually. I think it's 7 sounds that your child needs to learn
I don't know.
in kindergarten. I'll actually look that up in just a second. And so you have the kids who come in with just the requirement. Then you have the kids who come in and they already know them all.
Yeah.
And then you have the kids who know none.
Right.
Right. And so the ones who come in knowing none end up being the ones who are left behind.
Yeah.
You know, and
they're the ones that the teachers say, I can't teach them. I don't know how to teach them. And even trained teachers.
right.
Right.
And then I feel like you miss that window, because when you get into kindergarten, kids are not interested in the letters and the sounds that they're making. Their brains are so much more curious about the world around them than about what a flat letter is saying. Right. Because they don't have that logical awareness yet of what it means to read.
Right.
And so they're not interested in it.
Which I think is where people have gotten off track with the reading, because they
Yes.
have to learn those sounds.
Yes.
So we have to find ways to help them learn them.
Right. And that's why I think introducing them sooner, from what I have personally experienced, is the way to go.
Yeah.
Because they're so excited about it.
And there's a lot of fun ways that you can do it.
Absolutely.
And easier ways. Like I said, she would cry because it was so hard for her. So I found doing smaller chunks of time. So that I got that idea from Sally Shaywitz, where I would get 5 flashcards and they might have a sound on it. They might have a word on it. And every, like several times during the day before she did this, I'd say, okay, let's do these 5 cards. And you have to make sure that she already knows some of them, because they need lots of repetitions on it. Right. And so that she can feel some success, but where she's also getting challenged a little bit on it, that, and so that's what I did. I followed some of those things, and I worked really hard on that. Like I said, this friend said, I don't know why you're doing this, but the reason I was doing it at the time was because, I didn't know anything about like when kids should learn to read and all that kind of stuff. But I just knew that when my husband started school, he hated school for the rest of his life. Yeah. And I knew that she was excited to go to school because her big sister was going to school, and she knew I worked at a school, and she was so excited for her opportunity to start school. And I thought, I don't want her to start and then find out it's so hard. I was just doing it to try to prevent that feeling of, this is too hard for me. I don't know how to do it. I wanted to be the bad guy. I wanted to be the one who said, okay, we're going to work hard and do this, so that she could go to school and like school, because I thought that would be so important. Right. So I did that. And you know what? She knew all her sounds by the time she started kindergarten. And I thought she might fall behind a little bit, but she really never did. She wasn't ever it took her a long time to become a voracious reader. I won't say she was never a voracious reader, because she is a voracious reader now, but it took her a long time to actually pick up books on her own and read them. My older daughter would catch her in bed at night with a flashlight. Right. But with her, it took till like 3rd or 4th grade before she was picking up books and just voraciously. And now she's my biggest reader. She collects books. She loves it. And so I feel like that foundation I gave her, almost by accident, but not really, because, because I had the older daughter and I knew how to compare, I knew to see, okay, something's not right here. And I started my research and knowing I didn't know what to do as an educator. Yeah. So imagine all these people who maybe don't have another child to compare to. They just expect they're going to send their kids to school and the schools are going to teach them. Right. And the truth is, a lot of the schools don't know how to teach them.
Well, and let's compare just for a second. Is your husband a voracious reader?
No. No. In fact, just the other day, he got a new printer. And he was trying to figure out how to set it up. And I said, did you read the instructions? And he said, I don't read instructions.
Well, there you go.
But he figured it out. And, now there's YouTube and all this kind of stuff. But he doesn't read. He does read, actually. He reads more than he probably would admit to reading, because he reads online and stuff. But he's actually a really curious learner. But anyway, that's a separate, we can talk a lot about that as time goes on.
Yes, absolutely.
But we want to kind of just get into a little bit just right now what we're going to be doing on this podcast and kind of what the overall problem is. So, and we want to have some data. So according to the nation's report card, which uses NAEP scores, which stands for National Assessment of Educational Progress, in 2022, only 33% of our nation's 4th graders were proficient in reading. That means 67% of 4th graders were not proficient in reading. And then I found this statistic that according to the truthaboutreading.com, 66% of students who cannot read proficiently by the end of 4th grade will end up in jail.
Which terrifies me.
It's terrifying.
I have a daughter who's in 4th grade right now, and she's a very proficient reader. Like she's loves to read. She's very quick at reading. But she started learning her letters and sounds at 2 years old, right? So she had that foundation, and she loves reading. She's very avid about it. But I see kids in her grade who are struggling, and I know kids who are in her grade, and I've taught some of them in my own personal reading class. And it breaks my heart. And it's these kids right here that are getting left behind, because As teachers, we are constantly told, teach to the top 75%,
Yeah.
right? If 75% of your class has it,
Or
move
or
on.
even teach to the middle.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of training I got that said teach to the middle. And then, but these kids still keep getting left behind. And that people are saying, well, you know, people are excited. Schools are excited when they're getting over 50% of their kids proficient in reading.
Yeah.
And that's sad because, I mean, we should focus on the positive. We should focus on the things that we are doing good as educators. But at the same time, each child is an individual story.
Right.
And each child deserves the right to learn how to read. And it's our responsibility as educators to teach them. And we need to do more. We can do more to learn how to do that and how to help them. And I think starting early is really important. And I have to tell you, I can remember in my educational training, I do remember one time sitting in a class where they said, you know, young children, preschool and kindergartners do not need to learn how to read. They need to play. They need to explore, and they need to learn through exploring. And I remember thinking, oh, okay, you know, and the truth is they do need to do those things. But just like you were saying, some kids can get away with not learning how to read and just having be read to and all that stuff and then pick up the reading. But there are kids and brains that need that early exposure, and we need to catch these kids early. A lot of times people are saying, well, don't worry about it. They'll catch on. And nobody really decides there's a problem until they can't read by third grade.
Right.
And then it's too late.
Because they already feel defeated. And once the kid feels defeated and starts shutting down, it is a lot harder to pull them out.
Right. That's true. Oh, yeah. And then I have this from the Letters Manual, this quote from the Letters Manual that I found that I thought was really good. It said, unless students learn to read by the end of first grade, they're highly likely to remain poor readers and suffer academic difficulties across all subjects. And the great thing about the Letters Manual is it cites lots of resources, which I really like to do is look into, like, how are they getting this information? Because sometimes people will misquote science, or they'll you know, they'll take it out of context or whatever. So I looked up one of them. I downloaded one of the research studies by Connie Jewell, and this was done in 1988. Right. And this is what this summary of this study says. It says the probability that a child would remain a poor reader at the end of fourth grade if the child was a poor reader at the end of first grade was 88%.
And that just breaks my heart because we're first grade teachers, right?
We have a really important job.
And it breaks my heart. It makes me so sad. But something you guys need to know about Belle is that she, is not just an avid reader. She's an avid researcher as well. So
I like science. I do.
She does. And she is this vessel of information. And I love just soaking information from her. And so, I mean, it's just amazing what she has done, and everything that she has looked into, because she wants to make sure that she doesn't just give you guys data and give you guys statistics, but you are looking to make sure that you are presenting the statistics correctly and all the data correctly.
I'm trying to, because I feel like this is one of the problems that we've had in education is people will take things out of context. And we're actually going to talk about that more in our next episode. Yes. About using science with integrity. And that's what we want to make sure that we're doing on this podcast. So we want to focus on early literacy. We want to really focus on how we can help those kids who are being left behind. We want to close that gap.
Especially the ones who can't afford the private tutors. Especially the ones who can't, oh my gosh, my mind just went blank. Who can't afford the private tutors, who can't afford all of these different manipulatives and materials and resources to pull them out, you know? And so we really want to help make a difference, because those are the kids right there that are being missed. Right. Those are the kids right there.
And many of them are getting help because their parents are really pushing, or their parents can afford to get them tutoring. Right. And that is not okay. We need to, so we're hoping that we can play a part in helping to join this conversation. There's a lot of people now that are speaking out about this. There's some podcasts and journalists. Emily Hanford has done Sold the Story, which is gotten a lot of attention. The COVID restrictions got parents noticing what was going on. And so there's a lot of people that are really starting to wake up to this. And we feel like more teachers need to be speaking out, and we want to be part of that. And so that's why we're starting this podcast, so that we can be part of the solution, and that we can join the conversation about that. So again, we're going to wrap up this episode, but next time we're going to explore some of the reasons for the big gap. We're going to look more at science and some of the problems with science, and talk about how we can do science with more integrity. And we feel like we need to, like, at first I was like, I don't know if we want to start with the negative, but you can't really fix a problem until you know what the problem is. So our next couple episodes, we're going to kind of focus a little bit more on the problem, and then hopefully we can get into some solutions and some ideas and some practical applications, because that's a big part of the problem too, is you can do all this letters training and all that stuff, and then how does it look in the classroom?
Right. And
so
how do you apply it?
Hoping to apply that.
So what we're hoping is that you guys will help join us in this conversation, that you guys will reach out to us if you guys have any questions or suggestions for topics or things that you would like us to discuss or research, or, you know, if you've tried things that aren't working or how you could do different things, please reach out to us on our email at candiceandbelle@gmail.com. It's KANDICE and
AND, not the and sign.
Right. Belle, BEL @gmail.com, because we'd love to include listener questions in later episodes and do like almost like a listener's choice.
Right. We want to be able to really help you.
Thank you so much for tuning in.
We're so glad you were here.
And we look forward and hope you join us for our next one.
Yeah.